So tonight we're going to be discussing, as the title here states, the reason and source for the custom to study PIRKEI on Shabbos afternoon. Of course, PIRKEI, we all know, is translated as ethics of our fathers. It's not a direct translation. Avos does mean indeed fathers, kind of meaning tradition. And of course, we all know it's 5 chapters plus a 6th chapter of Breita, and they all discuss not direct Jewish law, but Jewish thinking and Jewish ethics and inspirational quotes and things of that nature. And we're all familiar with the practice in Chabad, which is we begin to study it every Shabbos afternoon, beginning with Pesach all the way through Rosh Hashanah. And we might be familiar with some of the other customs in other communities where they learn it Pesach till Shavuos. So let's see how far back we can go with finding where this custom starts, because it's not found in the Gemara. It's not found in the Talmud. It's not there. So how far back does it go, and what exactly is the nature of this custom and the reason for it? So I should start, as the Mishnah in Avos says, Tractate Avos says, anyone who says something in the name of the one who he hears it from, maybe Geula Olam brings redemption to the world. That's in Pirkei Avos. So the class tonight is pretty much built on this book, written by Rabbi Gedalia Oberlander. And it's 2 volumes. And essentially, he goes through customs that are not law and digs up there, does what we're doing in the class. It goes to the research of where it comes from, the oldest places and the reasons and so on and so forth. So it's a very nice book. So I've been aided in tonight's class using this book. Okay. So the earliest source cited here, as you can see in the top here, the dates are the 2 Goinim, Rav Amram Goin and Rav Sar Shalom Goin. Now I quote them both because, as you'll see in a moment, the text we're about to read comes from Rav Amram Goin, and he quotes Sar Shalom Goin. We once spoke about this idea of scholars who published Siddurdum. The Alter Rebbe published one. We talked about this. Publishing a Siddur means, A, you research the liturgy to put together a formulation of what you should say on each day. And along with that, you'll have customs and practices that are associated with the various different liturgical requirements. So on the Seder night, you have a whole list of things you got to be saying, and then you'll have instructions. Stand here, sit here, do this here. So lots of law is published in a Siddur that would have been published. And there are many such works that are really works of Jewish law that are packaged as Siddurdum, as a Siddur. The earliest of which is Rav Amram Goin. The Goinim, Gaon. Gaon means genius. And it was a title reserved for the scholars who served as the leaders of the Jewish people in Babylonia post-Talmudic era. So the Talmud is redacted by Rav Ashi and Ravina. But the Jewish people stay in Babylonia for a very long time, for a couple of centuries actually, with centralized Jewish authority that was embodied in the person known as the Nasi. He was the leader. He was an effective king of sorts. He was the political leader of the Jewish people. And then you had the Gaon. The Gaon was like the religious leader, who was the Rosh Yeshiva, who had been the head of the yeshivas of the academy. And there were 2 academies, so you had sometimes 2 Gaonim at once, Sura and Pumbedisa. So they're the first scholars of the generation post the Talmudic era. Gaonim. There's a small period referred to as the Rabbanon Savaroi, which is like the in-between area, the era in between the Gemara and the Gaonim, before it becomes like official that this is Gaonim. But so this is this period. You have lots of writing from that era, a little less in the later generations, but still quite a bit. And one of these works is I think it's the earliest Siddur ever published, Rav Amram Goin. Rav Amram, one of these Goinim. And he quotes Rav Sar Shalom Goin, which is another one of the Goinim, which probably preceded him, because as you can see here, Rav Sar Shalom Goin, the second name on the list there, dies in the year 859. And Rav Amram Goin. Sorry?
They didn't print 810, they didn't print it.
No, he would have wrote. He would have a manuscript, yeah. And Rav Amram Goin dies in 875. So I imagine that Rav Amram Goin may have like succeeded Sar Shalom Goin. But he's quoting him, so this is how far back it goes. Now, as you see, the way it's formulated is not formulated as in like, here's something you should do, but rather as stated as, this is the custom we've been doing, which means the custom predates the people speaking. Because not as if he comes along and says, I have a novel idea, we should be doing X. Then you would know it starts with him, if that's the way he formulates it. Because as we'll see, the way he describes it is, our custom has been to do X. It means the custom predates them. So it's not far-fetched to assume that the custom is as old as the Gemara itself. Because this is people speaking not far after the Gemara. And they're saying this has been our custom. Just because it's not in the Gemara doesn't mean that in the Gemara's time they weren't doing it.
What is this S-U-R-A, Surah?
Surah is a town in Babel.
And D means what?
Died.
Died.
The year he died. Died in 18.
Shalom died then.
Shalom died earlier, right? Amram dies in 875. Yeah, so I don't know, but I'm guessing if Amram succeeded him or comes after him. He quotes him.
So he's in the 700s.
Yeah, it's quite far back, yeah. It's quite far back, yes. That's right. It's very far back. So saying it's very possible it goes all the way back to the Gemara. However, it's interesting to note, though, that Rambam doesn't mention it. And Rambam usually collects, or that's Rambam's stated objective is to collect all the known laws and practices, and he doesn't include this in his list. So maybe some places didn't do it at that time. And we're going to see soon that it could vary from location to location. Okay, so let's see what Rav Amram Goyen says. That's when Rav Amram Goyen lived. Rav Amram Goyen lived from 810 to 875. Lived 65 years. And then the person who he's quoting, which is the next person, Sar Shalom Goyen, dies a few years before him, dies in 859.
So how many years?
I Googled it, I didn't see what year he was born.
After the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, how many years was this?
It's almost 800 years. The Beis Hamikdash was destroyed in the year 70, right? In the year 70. So it's a couple hundred years later. But during those couple hundred years, you have the Mishnah and the Gemara, right? The Mishnah is written after something like 100 years or so after the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, the Mishnah, and then the Gemara lasts for about 400 years after the Mishnah. So this is maybe 150, 200 years after the Gemara, something like that. Yeah. So I'd just say it could be goes back as far back as the Gemara. Can't say for sure yes or no, because it's not as if like we have before that don't say this. We have this very early text saying this has been our custom, right? Which implies that it predates them, right? It's kind of this is as far back as it goes. Okay. So let's see. So it's a very far back custom, bottom line. But as we'll see, it's a little different than the custom we have. So the end of the first line. V'haki Amar Sar Shalom Goyen. Amram Goyen is speaking. And he says, this is what Sar Shalom Goyen said. This person who lived before me. Their times overlap, but he's older than me. Mincha b'Shabbos, Mincha on Shabbos afternoon, mutter lis asik b'Talmud. It is permissible to study Torah. Well, why wouldn't it be? Sorry?
Because they're Kabbalah, maybe.
So Shabbos afternoon, as we're going to learn, there is a custom borderline law not to learn Shabbos afternoon. Any.
Oh.
Why? As we're going to see, out of respect for the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu died Shabbos afternoon. The Gemara says that the day a leader of the Jewish people dies, on that day, the study hall should be closed. Out of respect for the leader who died, everybody should be at the funeral, everybody should be mourning his death.
Right.
So because Moshe Rabbeinu died Shabbos afternoon, therefore no learning Shabbos afternoon. So says Sar Shalom Goyen, actually we did learn. We're not so, it's okay to learn. And he says, not only that, the custom in the house of our master in Babylonia, that is to say, the head of the Jewish people I just described earlier, the centralized body of religious leadership in Bavel, their custom was that after Mincha and Shabbos afternoon, Shoinen Avos, they would review Tractate Avos, the Kinyan Torah, and Kinyan Torah, which is that 6th chapter of PIRKEI is called Kinyan Torah. Right, the first 5 chapters are Mishnah, the 5th one is Braita, it's called Kinyan Torah. That 6th chapter all talks about the value of learning Torah.
Shonen is learn.
Shonen means to review, yeah.
Review or learn.
Lishnos means to review like again, to learn again.
One thing with Mincha, that's why we don't say Yom Shabbos because David and Malach died.
Okay, we're going to see Siddurdum now also, yeah. Yep. So this is earlier as far back as it goes. So it almost sounds like, as we're going to see. Okay, if you just read this, Which Shabbosim of the year would you be doing Pirkei Avos? If you just read this, what would you say?
Only the day that Moshes died.
But he doesn't say the weekend of Zion Adar. He says you're allowed to learn Shabbos afternoon. Not only that, but our custom was to learn Avos every week.
Oh, so every week.
Every week. Why would between Pesach and Shavuot nothing to do all year round? It has to do with the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu died, and we're not supposed to be learning. So we learn Avos, which is like this lighter version of learning, which is not such heavy learning, right? So actually, the custom to learn Avos almost sounds like begins with a law not to learn.
Right.
You're not going to sit around and do nothing. So instead of doing nothing, we're going to do like a lighter form of learning, which is like Avos. It's lighter. Michael Chernak used to call the sauce, the softer stuff. This is the earliest custom of the earliest version of this practice. Is out of respect for Moshes Death, we're going to tone down our learning and learn something light. And it seems like it was every single week. Nothing to do with Pesach to Shavuos. It was all year round, right?
It's a weird. I know it's a weird thing not to learn.
Yeah, you look.
If you learn so many times,
So you
elevate the Shabbat.
So,
why would you not learn? I would never think you would not.
Because what we're going to see in a minute. Let's keep on reading. Va'oder Gilin Yisrael, and it's also a practice amongst Jews. It's Tfilas Mincha b'Shabbos. That Mincha Shabbos afternoon, Magdimin Oisa, they would have Mincha early rather than wait till the end, last minute. They would daven Mincha early. But Tfilas Arvis and Ma'ariv Ma'achrin Oisa Harbe, they would daven Ma'ariv very late because you want to extend Shabbos later. So they would daven Mincha early, Shabbos late, and Ma'ariv late. So a long break there. Kedam Rinon, as the Gemara says, Shiny Alu Yoma Ma'fuka Yoma. The beginning of the day, meaning the beginning of Shabbos, Mincha and of Shabbos, of Friday afternoon, is different than Mincha at the end of the day on Shabbos afternoon. Ilu on Erev Shabbos on Friday, we try to do it as early as possible because we want to extend Shabbos into Friday. But Afuka Yoma, when the day ends, at the end of Shabbos, however much you can, you push it off. You extend Shabbos. That Shabbos shouldn't seem like a burden, that the second it's over, we're running off to Daven Ma'ariv. Take your time, daven late. Okay, and then he says, between Mincha and Ma'ariv, you should sit and do nothing out of respect for Moshe's death. But if you can learn something, it's a little better than doing nothing. Which is why he just finished saying we do Avos, which is a lighter kind of learning.
Chapter 1 to 5 is Mishnah.
Yeah. Sorry?
That's deep stuff.
The Mishnah of Pirkei Avos is not so deep. It's easy to read. You read it in English. It's not like a...
It's easy to read.
Right. So it doesn't require some, it's not like a pilpul or figuring out halacha. It's a simple, straightforward stuff. Easy to read and easy to understand for anybody. Right? And he goes on to say, in Oiskin, the fact that people aren't invested deeply in Torah study, let me finish Asr. It's not because it's forbidden. It's because out of respect for Moshe Rabbeinu who passed on Shabbos afternoon, in order, and in this way we fulfill that which the Gemara says, that when the leader dies, the base medrash is empty, out of respect for his death.
That makes sense the first time, 9 years after that.
Isn't it strange?
Isn't
it strange? Every single Shabbos, no learning, out of respect for the death of Moshe Rabbeinu. But this is the earliest practice we have. To our modern sensibilities, it sounds very strange, but this is the earliest practice. This is the earliest found practice we have. Okay.
We don't do anything like those old days.
Sorry?
Everything is said on here, we don't do. Fire, run right away to them.
That we could do.
We could, but we don't. The fact that we
should do that. Okay, so now we have. So this was in the year 800, in the late 800s, or the mid 800s in Babylonia. So we fast forward 500 years, and the Jews are now in Ashkenaz land and in Sfarad land. So the customs start to diverge a little bit, and it would seem, this is the way he frames it, and you can see the text here, it would seem that in the Ashkenazi, at least originally, they kept the original custom of Babylonia to do it all year round. And in Sfarad, it became only like summer months, as we're going to see, with varying customs. And then they kind of overlapped, and all kinds of different customs popped up as to when you should be doing Pirkei Avos. Although, as we just read, the original would have been to do it every single Shabbos, right? So the original text we just read was a little bit confusing because it says not to learn, but we still do Avos because we don't want to be wasting time. So now Rashi, in a book called Parshas gives a little bit more clarity as to why Avos is selected, even though we shouldn't be learning out of respect for, out of deference for Moshe Rabbeinu's passing.
Israel followed this too?
To who?
In Israel?
In Eretz Yisrael? Yeah, same thing. Yeah. So let's see.
We don't hold by that today.
What?
Not learning on Zion Adar.
It doesn't, no, I never mentioned Zayin Adar.
You're right.
Doesn't mention that. Shabbos afternoon,
Right.
which is, you're right, it adds to the strangeness of the custom. If you're talking about commemorating the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, you do something on Zayin Adar. But somehow, Shabbos afternoon became like every single afternoon,
Yeah.
remembering Moshe's death at this time.
Nail
Funny
on
thing.
his yard sector.
Yeah.
Right.
The truth is actually, the Shulchan Aruch says, a list of days that if a person wants to fast, he could fast because of events that happened in our history. And one of them is Zayin Adar. Because if he wants to mourn Moshe's death, he can fast on Zayin Adar. The Shulchan Aruch mentions that.
Is Israel ahead of us in PIRKEI because they followed up Shabbos because it was over by then Friday night?
Ooh, good question. I don't know.
I know.
It's probably in here. It's probably in here. I have to look it up. But
Speaking of
They
fast,
had that first.
yeah.
speaking of fast, reminded me of something I heard today that if somebody on the yard side, not the first year, but years afterwards, they can take on a fast for the yard side.
People do that. Chabad discourages increasing in fasts.
Okay.
Well, the point of a fast is a spiritual exercise. What ends up happening is to us is we end up becoming
So
fasting
instead of
becomes an
not
excuse to
eating-
sit on the couch and entertain yourself with something else because I can't focus on anything else because I'm fasting. Better eat well and learn properly and
Right.
give and instead give money to tzedakah, as
Right.
Dalton writes in the Ger Tshuva. Yeah. Or like some of the other books write to take a fast of speaking idle chatter for a day.
Yeah.
Tanas Dibur rather than eating food, avoiding food. That's a thing. It's a real thing. Tanas Dibur.
Yeah.
Okay. So Rashi says as follows. Let's see. Again, page 2. Yeah. So it's a book called Parshas Hagadol, written by Rashi. You could see he's in France. He's in 1040, 1105. So we're fast forwarding 250 years. No, not so long. Sorry, 250 years. But we're moving away from Babylonia. We're going to France now. So you don't have the centralized authority of Jewish leadership as you did in Babylonia. It's more scattered. We already have the split between the Sephardim and Ashkenazim already exists at this point. So he quotes, as you see there in the third line, V'hachri Amar Rav Shalom Goin. He quotes Rav Shalom Goin that b'Shabbos b'Mincha, that Shabbat by Mincha, mutar l'sasik b'Torah. It's okay to learn Torah. But moreover, Shemini based Rabbeinu Shabbat was a custom of the leadership in Babylonia. La'achat tefillas mincha after mincha b'Shabbos on Shabbos. Showing an Avos the Kinyan Torah. They would learn Avos and Kinyan Torah. Which, by the way, you can make the argument that they would actually learn all 6 chapters every week, because he doesn't say anything here about dividing it up every week to another chapter. He just says every Shabbos afternoon we would review Avos and Kinyan Torah, which sounds like every single week they would do all 6 chapters.
Yeah, that's why they done Mincha early and
Ma'ariv late. So they would have that hour or so, and they would go through all 6 chapters. It's doable in an hour, right? That's what it sounds like. Imagine you did it, by the way. Every single week you reviewed all 6 chapters of PIRKEI. By the time you were, 2 or 3 years into doing this, you'd probably know it by heart, or at least to some degree.
If you're just reading the words,
Yeah.
yes. Not if you're
Imagine you had
reading
all
it.
the ethics of PIRKEI in your head like that. It would be very cool to you. It would probably do a lot for your character. It would do very well for your character. Like people who learn, like there's people who read the Geras Ramban, right? The Ramban's famous letter on ethics. The Ramban wrote a letter. It's an essay about like ethics, about being honest and whatever. And there are people who read it every single day because they want, or like the Rebbe encouraged people to learn to read the first half a page of Perek Malach. Those lines are in your head every day. It has an effect on your character. So imagine if you had all of PIRKEI in your head. Okay, you didn't know every single word by heart, but you know the flow because you're doing it every single week.
Yeah.
And all 6 chapters doesn't seem to see anything else.
Nice.
It's just interesting.
Certainly, I felt like, let's say, after I finished learning like a chavrus of Siddurdum or something, then you really think about it and you leave thinking about it.
Yeah.
You're like operating on a different plane.
100%.
For a brief period of time while you're still in that world.
That's the right way. Yeah, that's 100%.
It's like.
Yep.
And then you really start to think about admire people that
Do it all day.
do it all day. They're like, they must be operating on such a much different plane. It's like I experience like 10% of my day.
Okay, so he quotes this Shalom Goren that people had the custom to review PIRKEI every Friday afternoon, Shabbos afternoon. And then he says, there are those who had the custom to daven mincha early, and until Ma'ariv, they would sit and do nothing out of respect for Moshe Rabbeinu's passing. And then he goes on to say it's better to learn and rather than do nothing. And then he says that those who didn't learn, again, he's quoting from what we read earlier, is out of deference to Moshe in his passing. Now he adds this line. So it seems like there's two customs, right? This is what we're getting here. There was no one would do intense learning. That's not respectful to Moshe Rabbeinu. Some would just do nothing. And some said, better do something. So they would do avos every week, right? So why avos? So now Rashi is going to give us some reasoning to why avos. For now, all we had was that it's lighter. It's a lighter learning. So we do avos, it's not such a deep learning. So we're kind of commemorating Moshes' death by not learning, because we're not learning such deep learning. It's lighter learning. But Rashi adds more as to why avos becomes valuable, and writes, now here's the reason why they would review avos. Sorry?
All the other lines.
Yeah, I skipped it. He reviews what we read in Avram Gaon. He says it's middle of page 2. Moshe kibul Torah, because avos begins by saying that Moshe received Torah at Sinai. That's how PIRKEI opens up. Moshe received Torah at Sinai. He gave it to Yeshua. Joshua gave it to the elders to the prophets to the right, and so on and so forth. So, because the whole avos begins with Moshe Rabbeinu, so Loimar, this is our way of saying, we are now relating the honor of Moshe Rabbeinu, which died at this time. And that's why we're not learning anything else. This is the custom. After a person passes, we describe his honor and his successful activities. And in this way, it gives good rest to the person who passed. So why avos? Says Rashi, well, because it has praise of Moshe Rabbeinu. So it's a way of explaining ourselves. Why aren't we doing in-depth learning? Well, because you, Moshe, passed. We're trying to mourn the loss. So we're going to read something that praises your activity. So this is, right? This is what Rashi says. So this would further support the notion that they did all 6 chapters every week. Because if they did 1 chapter every week, then only once every 6 weeks would they be praising Moshe Rabbeinu. If the whole point of why learning your avos, according to Rashi, is to praise Moshe Rabbeinu, it's only in that opening line of chapter 1. Right? So it would only be valuable if you read that line every week, which would imply that they read all 6 chapters every week. That's why we're not learning deeply, because you passed. So instead, we're going to praise your activity and describe the Mishnah, which reads that you got Torah from Sinai. And if all the Torah we have is thanks to you. That's PIRKEI, right? The first chapter of PIRKEI does that. It describes Moshe Rabbeinu getting from Torah from Sinai. And it goes on to say generations of people who added ideas and how to learn and what to learn. But it all goes back to Moshe Rabbeinu. So it's kind of a praise of Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's how we're doing avos now. Okay. Now, you stop over here. We'll do mincha. We'll come back. We'll come back after mincha. We're going to look at the Alter Shulchan Aruch, which seems to say we should not be learning between mincha and ma'ariv. But we're going to see why we actually do learn between mincha and ma'ariv. And then we're going to get to, now that will settle this custom. And then we're going to get to the other customs of learn. Sorry?
Between mincha and ma'ariv on Shabbos or the Klum?
Between mincha and ma'ariv on Shabbos. And then we're going to get to, so once we get, we're going to settle the custom of mincha and ma'ariv on Shabbos. And then we're going to get to the customs that do not do PIRKEI every week, like we only do it during certain weeks. And we're going to see different customs about which weeks during the year to do it and what would be their reasoning. Because if the reason is for Moshe Rabbeinu, then do it every week. So if we're not doing it every week, it must be some other reasons, which we will get to after we come to Mincha.
Yeah, the other way.
Yeah, the door's open.
So far what we have is 2 customs that go back to times of the Jews in Babylonia, both of which are related to the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away on Shabbos afternoon. And one custom is just to do nothing, to not learn at all. And the other custom is to do a lighter kind of learning, which is avos. And as Rashi put it to us, because this is also praise of Moshe Rabbeinu. So at this point, it would seem either you're doing nothing between Mincha and ma'ariv on Shabbos afternoon, or you're learning all of avos every week. That's what it would seem like. So let's see what the Alter Rebbe writes in the Code of Jewish Law. Simin Reish Tzadik Beis, section 292, the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, it's at the bottom of page 2. So you can read it in English here. It says, after Shema Nasser, it is customary to recite the 3 verses that begin with, you are righteous, right, all those. The recitation serves as a form of justification of divine judgment for the three righteous men, Yosef, Moshe, and David, who died at this time, Shabbat Siddurdum. So the Tzidkoscha, right, is your righteousness. You're talking to God, your righteousness. That their death is your righteousness. You decide that they should die at this time.
We don't even mention them. We don't say it.
We don't mention their names, but that's what we do it for. For Moshe, David, and Yosef, who passed away on Friday afternoon, on Shabbat afternoon. Then it continues. It is customary not to establish study sessions between the afternoon service and the evening service on Shabbos. The rationale is that when the sage dies, his house of study ceases its sessions, i.e., the scholars do not study as a group. Nevertheless, pairs of two study together in their homes, as will be stated in your data sections 344, which we don't have that part of the Alter Shulchan Aruch.
Right.
So what did Alter write?
It's a chiddush, what you're saying.
What?
So what you're saying is a chiddush. You're saying it's
Pairs
not that we're
of
stopping to learn. It's just the Beis
Not in a group. Right.
Right.
Oh, so it's a little bit. It's a variation on this custom, but the halacha remains that Shabbat afternoon there shouldn't be a group study. Right.
Still studying, but study at your Shabbos table, not in Zal, basically.
In pairs of two, but not in not the study halls this morning.
Right.
Yeah. No mention of PIRKEI yet.
What we're doing before Mikvah is okay.
Everything changed.
We're talking about Shabbos, right? Okay, now, but accordingly, the custom is to hold communal study sessions before the afternoon service, before Mincha. Right? If the study session is prolonged until close to nightfall, so that it would be impossible to partake of the third Shabbos meal, then PIRKEI or Shir should not be recited, and that way you can actually have your third meal between Mincha and Ma'ariv. So we have here, by the bottom line trying to get to is that, there should not be big study sessions on Shabbos afternoon after Mincha in commemoration of Moshe Rabbeinu's passing. Of course, every week we have the rabbi giving a class, so what's the deal?
Right. It says PIRKEI should not be.
If it goes so late and it's a choice between PIRKEI and your meal. Okay, so now we have the Mishnah Berurah, which writes like this. Be'el Yerabba, excuse me. Sorry. Okay, so El Yerabba, Isa, we're on page 3 in the second to last text there. It says Mishnah Berurah, right? The famous Mishnah Berurah, the Chafetz Chaim, after the Alter Shulchan Aruch, of the Lithuanian persuasion, right? Not the Hasidic ruler, but he writes. El Yerabba Isa b'shem Malbusha Yomtiv. The El Yerabba quotes a book called Malbusha Yomtiv. Shara Rabbi, who saw his teacher, the Maharal of Prague, the famous Rabbi Maharal of Prague, come upon him many times. Shadorash, that he gave a lecture between Mincha and Ma'ariv. The Maharal would give a lecture, not despite the fact that the Shulchan Aruch says not to. He would still give his lectures between Mincha and Ma'ariv on Shabbos Siddurdum. Balkain, and therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, Nira, it would seem, to Bismanenu, in our days, don't stop anybody from giving shir on between Mincha and Ma'ariv. Kedua, as is known, we know this is the situation nowadays that many places, many people sit around in the base medrash, in the shul, idle chatter. And certainly, Tavia says better, that they should hear some sort of inspiring speech, they shouldn't be wasting their time. So the Mishnah Berurah is already putting down, if like the Alter said, everybody's going to, after Mincha, everybody's going to go home and chavrusas and learn. But what's probably going to happen, says the Mishnah Berurah, is people are just going to sit around and do nothing.
Yeah.
So better hear a class from the rabbi.
He's translating here Musar as inspiring speech.
Musar literally means ethics.
Okay.
So, yeah, inspiring speech. Some people find the wrath of hell inspiring, but inspiring speech. Being a little facetious, but the point is made. Okay. Now we have Sefer Minhagim. So just to get to the bottom line, Sefer Minhagim is the official book of customs of Chabad, compiled by Rabbi Groner, their secretary, and Rabbi Greenglass from Montreal. The two of them compiled it. And to the best of my knowledge, it was reviewed by the Rebbe. So it's the authoritative book of customs of Chabad. It's a small little thin book, which has any customs that are not explicitly stated in the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, or not stated in the Alter Rebbe's Siddur. It'll be compiled in here. A lot of it comes from Hayam Yom, right? A lot of times in Hayam Yom you hear little customs. So that's in Sefer Minhagim, or other such places they collected to put together the official book of customs of Chabad. So there it reads, after Mincha on Shabbos, either the Rav, the rabbi, or another articulate person should teach a Maimer Chassidus memory. should recite Chassidus. So the minhag in Chabad shuls. That's what the rabbi does here. Every week he reviews the mimer he's teaching that week. Yeah. The speaker should first see to it that he himself thoroughly understands his concepts. He should also consider what wording will best convey them intelligibly to his audience. Make sure someone knows how to give a class. Baruch Hashem, we have the rabbi who's good at that. Okay, so bottom line is, notwithstanding this old custom to not learn between Mincha B'Arba and Shabbos Afternoon, because Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. Nowadays, just do your learning. Don't worry about it. Let the rabbi give a speech. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Back in those days, maybe they would really be mourning Moshe Rabbeinu's passing, or maybe they'd go home and learn a Chavrusas like we're learning from Alter Rebbe. But nowadays, hear the class and give the class. Okay, but so this leaves us with square one as far as PIRKEI goes. Because the custom to do it because Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, which would be a custom to do it every week, not something we're really doing. Moreover, we have a number of the early Ashkenazi halachic thinkers, and I just quote here the Rosh, but there are others who have the same argument, who make the case that Moshe Rabbeinu actually did not pass away Shabbos afternoon. They prove that Moshe Rabbeinu did not pass away Shabbos afternoon. It's a whole pilpul of itself. Did he pass away on Shabbos afternoon or not? So we already heard from the Go'inim of Bavel and from Rashi that yes, that he did pass away on Shabbos afternoon. But now we fast forward 200 years, right? Rashi died in 1105, and now we're at 1250. So 150 years later, Rabbeinu Asher and others of that era in the Ashkenazic world will make the case that Moshe Rabbeinu did not die on Shabbos. So let's see the cheshbon. Let's see how they come to this conclusion. The Gaman also, in the middle of page 3. Mashakosov shemes Moshe Rabbeinu, that which Rav Sar Shalom Goin said that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away b'Shabbos on Shabbos. Later, this is just not true. How do we know? Because the verse reads, Ben Me'eh ve'esrim shana anochi hayom. Moshe Rabbeinu says, today I'm 120 years old, as he's about to pass away. So, v'dorsh Rabbeinu Rosh Hashanah Daf Yud Aleph, and our sages derive from that, Hayom, on that very day, Molo Yimei Shnosav, his days were complete. That's the day he was born. Exactly 120 years later, on his birthday, that's when he says, I'm about to pass away. Now, on that day, when Moshe Rabbeinu says, I am now 120, Amrinon b'Medrash Rabbah. The Medrash tells us, Parshas Vayelech, commenting on Parshas Vayelech, which is where Moshe Rabbeinu says, I am 120 years old today, I'm about to die. So it says there in the Medrash that by Yoim, on that, yeah.
Can't be.
Why not? So the second last Parsha.
120 on other class, but not Parshas Vayelech.
No. It's in Parshas Vayelech.
Oh, where it says it.
Yeah, where it says it.
Oh,
Yeah. No. Not in the week of Vayelech. Right. But it says in the Medrash Rabbah commenting on the Parsha Vayelech. It says as follows: By Yoim, on that very day that Moshe Rabbeinu passed, Kosav, he wrote Yud Gimel Sifrei Torah, 13 Sifrei Torah scrolls, one for each chapter, one for each tribe, and one to keep in the Aron. And that would be the official one that they would go back to make sure there's no mistakes in the Torah. So now it says, if that day was Shabbos, how can it be writing? So this is reason number one why it cannot be that Moshe died on Shabbos. Because it says in the Medrash that he wrote on that very day 13 Torahs. He cannot do that on Shabbos.
How can you write it with 13 Torahs?
Another question.
So
whatever that means.
There's always exceptions.
So it could be he means he completed the 13 Torahs. He's writing them already for a while, but now he completed them. But either way, it's still clear in the Medrash that he wrote on that day. On that day, he did writing. Right? So what you mean is not Shabbos. It's a very good point. Now he makes another cheshbon. Let's see if you can follow this. V'oid, also, muchach, it's clear, b'seder olam, in a book called Seder Olam. Seder Olam is a very early Jewish work of Jewish history, or of history, period. It's called Seder Olam, which means order of the world, and it goes through various different events, starting from Adam and Eve, and gives them their dates and locations. Seder Olam. So in this book, chapter 11, PIRKEI Aleph, it says, it doesn't say, but it would seem from that chapter, to be'erev Shabbos nifter, that Moshe Rabbeinu passed on Friday, not on Shabbos. How do we get to that point? Because it says there in the book called Seder Olam, that Achar Pesach, after Pesach, B'chof Beis b'Nisan, on the 22nd day of Nisan, Savavu Seir, the Jewish people surrounded the city of Yericho. So we're talking about after Moshes' death. Moshes' death is on the 7th of Adar. A month and a half later, a month and 2 days later, the 10th of Nisan, the Jewish people enter the land of Israel. And then sometime later, on the 22nd of Nisan, right after Pesach, they surround the city of Yericho, the first city they attack. They surround it with Joshua, they march around it, and the whole miracle happens there. Right? The sun stops and the whole thing. Now he's marching around it for 7 days. And it's the 22nd of Nisan. Yeah, we're following? Now, remember it says, it wasn't the 7th day, 7 days after circling the town. The verse reads this. The wall fell. Rabbi Yossi says, Shabbos haya, it was Shabbos. Okay, so we know that the 22nd day he started circling. 7 days later, 28th, is when the wall fell. That day was Chav Ches Nisan, the 28th of Nisan, and that was Shabbos. So if we work backwards, from day 28 to Rosh Chodesh Nisan, count backwards 28 days. Nimtza, the result is Rosh Chodesh Nisan was Be'echad B'Shabbos on Sunday. Now, if you back up from Rosh Chodesh backwards to Rosh Chodesh Adar, then it would come out that Rosh Chodesh Adar was Shabbos. Because you lose a day. It's 29 days.
2 others, no one has anything with that. Some argue with
If we discussed this once. When did we discuss it? Oh, in the morning share. Yeah, there's a discussion about that. Now, but in case that's the case, if Rosh Chodesh Adar was Shabbos,
Sunday.
Then was Sunday, I'm sorry. Then no, sorry. Rosh Chodesh Nisan was Sunday and Rosh Chodesh Adar Shabbos. In Cain, if so, Shiva Ba'adar, the 7th day of Adar, Shemesh by Moshe, the day when Moshe passed away. Erev Shabbos is Friday.
So if the walls broke down on a Saturday,
Yeah.
Shabbos,
So Shabbos, yeah.
they weren't supposed to do work.
They didn't do work. They didn't make it fall down, right? It was miraculous. Miraculously.
Why would that happen on Shabbos?
On a halachic level, you have to say it was an exception because they were conquering the land of Israel. I don't know what exactly the cheshbon would be. But either way, we derive from this that the day Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, the 7th of Adar, must have been Friday. So you have 2 reasons to say it was Friday. Number one, because the Medrash says he wrote down the Torahs and he can't write on Shabbos. And number 2, because of this whole cheshbon, that the 28th day of Nisan was Shabbos, working backwards, 7th day of Adar would be Friday. So not only, as is our custom, we're not sitting around idly Shabbos afternoon because Moshe passed. We have strong reason to believe from this source and other sources that Moshe did not die on Shabbos. Okay.
What's it cost on the Moshe?
Which Tzidkascha is Shabbos afternoon, which the Alter wrote. Why do we say Tzidkascha? Because Moshe passed away on Shabbos. Okay, so there's a discussion, obviously it's machlokes to figure out how to answer these questions.
So what does it say? What does that mean?
It's not specifically for them. It said in general the dead should
go back to what?
Should come back as maybe it's referring to Chesed
because
Mason.
the Shabbos should not have no judgment.
Oh yeah, maybe that's what it is. And go back to the judgment. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Thank you.
Be admired.
It's the end of Shabbos.
Then there's
Okay,
also,
yeah.
There's also in the base of Mikdash there is like a freeze out on malachas. Like you're allowed to do malacha in the base of Mikdash.
It's not just a freeze out.
Yeah.
It's all the malachas we don't do on Shabbos is because that they do it in the temple. It's verkehrt.
So
The prohibition to begin with doesn't begin out in the temple.
right.
It's not as an exemption for the temple.
Okay.
It doesn't begin in the temple. It's you don't do work. What's work? Oh, the work you do in the temple. That's called work.
Okay.
It's the other way around.
But if the base of Mikdash preceded Moshe Rabbeinu, I mean,
how
it came after him. I'm saying.
Right? No, so.
So therefore, isn't he define what's work? Like if he
I'm not understanding.
like
The Torah doesn't define what's work.
right.
So the Torah is defining work by its own definition, which is the commandment to build a Mishkan. That would be the work. Or to work in the Mishkan, whatever. Depending which opinion you take.
And this was all before that.
For what?
No, okay.
It's the same time. Actually, Shabbos comes earlier.
Right.
The commandment for Shabbos is actually earlier as a Gemara. Anyway, this is a very side topic. Okay, so now the question becomes, so we have to, first of all, come to where's our custom to do it not every week, and what are the reasons for that? And then, what would be a reason to be saying Avos every day, every week, if Moshe didn't die on that day? So it says in a book called Machzer Vitri, written by Rashi's prodigal student. So it's the same time. And if I remember correctly, he also died the same year Rashi did, 1105. So he writes, the custom of the people is, L'shanoisa, to review it, reviewing Avos, the Beis HaKnesses in the shul, between Mincha and Ma'ariv on Shabbos. Here's the reason why. Not because Moshe Rabbeinu passed away that day. We already established he didn't. At least according to this view, he didn't. What's the reason? So says the Machzer Vitri. It's because the populace, they all come to shul on Friday, on Shabbos afternoon to hear Torah reading. The original custom of Torah reading is not the big Kriyas Torah we do on Shabbos morning. The original custom of Torah reading is to read, not to go 3 days without Torah reading. And if on Monday, Thursday, and Shabbos by Mincha, we read the Torah. So the community would come to hear the Torah reading by Mincha. Now, if we're here and we have their attention, let's teach them something. But we got to find some sort of something that could be universal. We start giving deep dissertations, the crowd's going to get bored.
That's what and Yaakov, they always
Similar to that custom of between Mincha and Ma'ariv on a regular day, they would teach Ein Yaakov, which is like the stories of the Gemara. So there's a similar kind of thing. So we talk to the people, midos terumos, about elevated character traits, hashnuyos that are described in Mesechazu in this tractate. Perek Layoim, 1 chapter a day. So here already we see it's not every week, all 6, but once a week. But now we have another reason to do it every single Shabbos.
Where are they teaching Yaakov?
Maybe the Arshos will do today, but the Alter writes about this, the importance of teaching in Yaakov. It was a thing back in the day, for that someone would get up and read the stories of Ein Yaakov between Moshe on a regular day. The Alter mentions it in Tanya, right?
So what does it say we have to read? It's just between Passover and...
Okay, we're going to get to that soon. Right now, we're at the older custom, which seems like it went all year round, right? So reason number 1 is because Moshe Rabbeinu passed away then. According to those who say Moshe Rabbeinu didn't die on Shabbos. Now, I have a different reason. Because the community's here. We want to inspire them. We want to connect with them. So we're going to find something that works and to give a whole deep halachic thing. But PIRKEI Avos, that talks to people.
So we got to 1 parak. So now
and 1 parak a week so that people can get into it.
We'll just talk with basic.
Yeah. So Kapi Sha'amru Chacham B'Manech HaSakad. And this is in reference to that which the sages say in chapter Manech HaKad, which is in Baba Basra. I'm sorry. Hanichu Chassid, the person who wants to be the Chassid, Man Dakayim Mila Avos. Who's the Chassid? The one who fulfills that which says in Avos. So the tractate Avos brings piety. Vehein and Higuba, and they established the Haschelba to begin with Kol Yisrael, which is what we do. Klapei Sheschal Yafi, because it's a nice beginning. And to draw in the hearts of the common folk. They shouldn't give up on their teshuvah. From redemption. To say, we're simpletons, we don't know anything, we lost all hope. Because they have some sin. So we begin the speech with Kol Yisrael. Because Kol Yisrael says every single Jew has a share in the world to come. So before we give them a speech, we tell them, you guys are great. Hashem loves you. You're good. Don't worry. Talk about Musar. This sounds very Baal Shem Tov style. When you're speaking to the masses, first thing you tell them is, you're good, you're amazing, all Jews have a share in the world to come. No such thing as lost hope. That's what he says, right? That's why we start with Kol Yisrael. And now that we got you in, now that you understand that you have hope, now let's learn PIRKEI Avos and learn how to become better people. So this is already now reason number 2 to be doing PIRKEI Avos. But so far, it would be every single week. After Ma'ariv will come back, and we'll see the various different customs of when to do it throughout the year and why.
This is in Baba Kama. It says it there.
It says, Man the boy if someone who wants to establish chassid, he should learn PIRKEI Avos. That's as far as the custom to say PIRKEI Avos every Shabbos, either
1 parak.
Right, 1 parak, either commemorating Moshe's passing, or if you're not of the view that Moshe passed on Shabbos, it's because the people are here, so we want to inspire them. Okay.
Easy stuff.
So now let's see, top of page 4, we have again from the Machzer Vitri, from Rashi's student, who at this generation, we start to see varying customs that did not say Pirkei Avos every day. Let's see. It's in the same book, but a different section of the same book. Where he writes, "In Higo or Rishonim, early people have established early Torah sages. Lishnas Meseches Avos to review Trapid Avos between Shabbos, between Mincha Ma'ariv. Because we learn from Pirkei Avos, Yireh Shemayim, fear of heaven, Derech Eretz. We learn how to be a mensch, should live properly. As well, our sages say, one who's looking to have piety, he should follow that which it says in Tractate Nezikin, which is the laws of business ethics or interpersonal ethics. And then Avina says, you should learn Tractate Avos. That's how you get piety. The brothers, others say it means to do blessings. Okay. Now, Malchus Ashkenaz v'Tzarfas, in the kingdom of Ashkenaz, that is Germany, and Tsarfas and France, so in Ashkenazi countries, Shoininoisoin, they would review it. Pirkei Avos, Shabbos, in the Shabbos, Shemi Pesach to Rosh Hashanah. From Pesach to Rosh Hashanah. That would be our custom. And they would organize it in such a way that it would begin and end then. So there are 6 chapters. Now, if you do each week a chapter, at the end, you have 3 weeks left. So we double up. So either we do that. Others might have other ways of splitting up the chapters in such a way that it would begin and end on Rosh Hashanah, have many cycles. So we should because this is the custom of that community. And this is Shisha Siddurdum, V'Kfulin, and Mushalshalin, Lefiat Tzarech Ad Azman. They would go through the 6 chapters, repeat them, say them a 3rd time, as per the need of how many weeks they have between Pesach and Rosh Hashanah, which is our custom. Now, there are some other countries, where they say it, in the winter months, specifically, for whatever reason. Others say it, they would say it from the first time they would read the Aseret Dibros to the second time. What is he referring to? From Parshas Yisrael to Parshas PIRKEI. Right? The first time the Aseret Dibros is said, 10 Commandments is in Parshas Yisrael. So that would be in mid-January somewhere. And then they would go to the second time that they would read the Aseret Dibros, which is not PIRKEI, V'Eschanon, somewhere in the summer. So that would be the months when they would do Pirkei Avos.
And where was the thing that we did until Shavuos? So
let's see. Others say all Shabbos. So far we had all Pesach to Rosh Hashanah. We had winter months, and we had from Yisroi to V'Eschanon, or every single Shabbos, 4 customs. Now the Kol Boy, we're going forward ahead a little bit in time. Rashi student is in the year 1105. He died. Now we're fast forwarding a couple hundred years. We have a book called the Kol Boy, which the author is unknown, but as you can see here, the first print is in 1490. So maybe the book is a little bit earlier. He writes, first of all, Talmud, you're allowed to learn during this time between Shabbat and Mincha Ma'ariv. Don't worry about the old custom not to learn. And what's the proof that you're allowed to learn? It's a custom in all of the Ashkenazi countries. Loimar to say Mesechtes Avos, the Tractate Avos, B'Kayitz B'Chayif in summer and winter. So this would seem like it's all year round. Now V'yesh B'Kamus, some say it, Pesach at Shavuos, from Pesach to Shavuos, V'Lo no more. Yesh B'Kamus, other places, Shenoim Moses, they would say it from Shavuos to Sukkos. Some of the customs. Yesh B'Kamus, Shenoim Moses B'Shabbos, V'Yishma Yisrael ad Shabbos Masei.
Why Masei?
Because V'Simin Mimatan Torah V'Ad Mishnah Torah. Moshe Kibbutz Torah, when Moshe Rabbeinu repeats the Parshas in Masei. So we have one custom between Pesach and Shavuos, one custom between Shavuos and Sukkot, one custom between Pesach and Shana. We have one custom winter months. We have one custom from Yisr to Veschanon, and we have another custom Yisr to Masei, and another custom to do it every single week.
Just do it every week.
All kinds of customs, 7 different versions. Okay, so what's the ruling? We go, of course, to the Code of Jewish Law. And the Code of Jewish Laws, we've discussed a number of times, is written by Rabbi Yosef Cairo, the Beis Yosef. The Yosef Cairo is of Sephardic extraction, and therefore the Code of Jewish Law predominantly is Sephardic. So came a Yid named Rabbi Moshe Isserlis. And here you can see we're fast forwarding a little bit in time. He's 50, 30, 50, 72, middle of page 4. And Rabbi Moshe Isserlis is known as the Rama, Reish Mem Aleph, Rabbi Moshe Isserlis, that stands for. And he wrote a gloss on the Shulchan Aruch. And the gloss contains any Ashkenazic custom or change to means added words, like a comment, I don't know. What's the other way of saying gloss? Like if you ever open a book and you see in the margin someone has notes, that's called a gloss. Okay. So the Shulchan Aruch itself mentions nothing of this custom. As it says, we say Tzidkascha of Shabbos afternoon. If Shabbos is such a day that had it been weekday, we wouldn't be saying Tachanon. And Einem Tzidkascha, you don't say Tzidkascha. Haga comes the gloss of the Ramah. V'nagu, and it's the custom. Shaloi l'kfaya medrash b'mincha l'ma'ariv. He includes that custom. We don't have any public lectures between mincha and ma'ariv. That original custom that Ramah includes, which we saw the Alter Rebbe also includes, even though our custom is to have Chassidus taught, but the Alter Rebbe says not to learn that time, right?
It's holy.
Because we're commemorating the death of Moshe Rabbeinu. That happened Shabbos afternoon.
Yeah, but this is already 1500, and we already said you're allowed to all that.
The Alter Rebbe, which is after the 1500s, also said you shouldn't be learning between mincha and ma'ariv, right? So the Ramah, it seems, was saying you shouldn't. AVOT, we say PIRKEI Avos in the summer, without saying when the summer is. Presumably summer means from Pesach to Rosh Hashanah, that would be summer. And in winter, instead of PIRKEI Avos, they would say Tehillim, the Shir HaMalos, the 15 Shir HaMalos. So you can't learn. Ramah's going back to the original custom, which is no learning Shabbos afternoon, because Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. So instead we do lighter learning. In the summer, do PIRKEI Avos. In the winter, Shir HaMalos.
I don't think it's Pesach because Pesach is Chodesh Ovid, not Kayetz.
Yeah, but how would you split the year half and half then?
I don't know, but it wouldn't be. Kayetz means really
It would
summer.
I understand, but how would you split the year? Okay, some of the commentaries say,
They don't do so.
how would you split the year half and half, summer and winter? How would you split the year half and half?
It doesn't say it's
Pesach
all
to
year.
Sukkot maybe,
It doesn't say it's
never.
all year.
Pesach
So
to Shana.
you just say PIRKEI
It seems like he's telling you what to do instead of not learning, because you're not supposed to be learning, right? So instead of that, here's what you're going to do. Summer PIRKEI Avos, and winter you're going to say Shir HaMalos. That's what it seems like the Ramah is saying. Right? Okay. But of course, our custom follows the Alter Rebbe Siddur, which reads in the middle of page 4, Noegelim PIRKEI Avos. It's our custom to say, it's a very interesting language. It says loimar, to say.
Not to learn.
So funny. In Lokut Sichos, hold on a second, where is it? It's in volume 17. It's not in 17. I'm just going to skip it.
That's the one they're learning with the project for Kotel Sichos.
Is it in Zion? I think it's in your. I think it's Chelek Zion. Anyway, over there, the Rebbe writes, it's a minute to learn PIRKEI Avos, and then puts a footnote under it for sources where it says to learn rather than to say. But here you see the Alter Rebbe writes, Noegel Loimar. It's a custom to say PIRKEI Avos, whatever that means. Just putting it out there. I think it's a Chelek Zion. Right?
Because Alter Rebbe holds you have to go home to it.
Oh, you know what I have on my phone? Give me a second.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why he doesn't want to undermine the Ramah, which says not to learn. So he says to say PIRKEI Avos.
He himself says, if you want to learn, go home.
If you want page 170. No, it's not your Zion.
It says Latzeres.
Sorry, not your Zion. Anyway, there's a footnote on. I looked it up today. I can't remember where it is. Okay, thank you, but it's not in here. Anyway, he says it's a custom to learn, and he puts a footnote. Anyway, okay. Nagin Loimar, it's a custom to say PIRKEI Avos. The Ramah also says the same thing. Aval Oimrim PIRKEI Avos. We say PIRKEI Avos instead of learn. But anyway, so Nagin Loimar PIRKEI Avos, it's a custom, says the Alter Rebbe in the Siddur, to say PIRKEI Avos, Perek Echad B'chol Shabbos, one chapter every week. Should be in Pesach Latzeret, between Pesach and Shavuos. Mincha and Mincha. Va'im Lefanav, Mishnah's Kol Yisrael, we say beforehand, the Mishnah Kol Yisrael, we saw it before from the Rashi, which said the reason is to inspire the people that they also have hope. And afterwards we say B'chananya ben Akashya. The Yesh Noyagin, others say, Noyagin Kach, they have the custom to do this, Kol Shabbos HaSakai, it's all Shabbos in the summer. So summer goes to Rosh Hashanah. Let's see. Okay.
And that's Berechanya Ben Akasha?
Yeah. The Mishnah after Pirkei Avos. Okay, let's see now. Let's get to some reasons. Why would we do Pesach and Shavuos? We're not going to read through all the text. We have a lot of time. Take too much time, but we're just going to bang out the reasons. So Abudraham says, let's read through quickly. Second line of Abudraham, 1300s, Spain. 1200s actually, because he died in 1300. The cost of Rabbi Yisrael, Ben Yisrael. I don't know what that is. Shatam Shakari Nois Beil Shabbos. The reason why we read Pirkei Avos during these weeks between Pesach and Shavuos is the Vishem Yomim Menuim Matan Torah. These are the days that are countdown to the giving of the Torah. We count these days, like the beloved one. He's waiting for his beloved to arrive from a distant journey. And the beloved is counting days and nights for his lover to come back. Now, this is the Sfiras HaOmer sounding type thing. But this is also the idea of Pirkei Avos, says the Abudraham. Because most of the matters of Avos, it's about getting us excited to read Torah, mitzvahs, and to fulfill commandments. Okay, so that's reason number one. Reason number one is Torah is being given soon. Get ourselves in excitement, get ourselves in the mood, inspire ourselves. Pirkei Avos. Reason number one. That would be for the custom to learn between Pesach and Shavuos. What about the custom as we have it to learn all the way till Rosh Hashanah? So he says, here are we? V'gam also, Zehazman, Shuzman HaKotzer, this time of year, which is the time of the harvest, it's the opportune time for when the desirabilities in the heart, in the person, start to be activated. Summer's coming. Let's have a good time. And this is when the person gets going and he wants to have fun and do things. And he starts to seek out all kinds of pleasures. We got to pipe down this enthusiasm to engage in worldly pleasures. And to correct it with what's available in this chapter, in these chapters of Avos, which are the ethics, and which cause a person to stand back, and it reminds a person to be a little humbled and to not seek those things that will end up being damaging to himself. To save him, will attack him and to correct his characters, that he follows the correct ethical path, ba'adas, and this proper knowledge. Ad kan dvarav. This is end quote from Yisrael ben Yisrael. So two reasons. A, we're getting excited for Shavuos, so we're getting in the mode, inspiring ourselves. And B, summer's coming, and in summer people like to have a good time. So Pirkei Avos comes to remind us what our ethics are, and we shouldn't lower our guard down because the rest of the world is lowering its moral guard down. So the second reason would apply to the custom to say it all summer, even though the first reason wouldn't, because the first reason is limited to preparing for Shavuos. Okay, some more reasons. From the Medrash Shmuel, we're going a little forward in time, 1500s, in Tzvas, and some other reasons. You can read it yourself later, but essentially he writes that this is, so first he quotes, he says here like this, that this time of year is time when people take care of their health, because it's like it's the springtime, it's good weather, it's not too cold, not too hot, so people will do what's called bloodletting. Bloodletting. Bloodletting is a ancient practice of letting blood run from the body, allowing the blood to regenerate, and that way supposedly regenerate healthier blood. So the best time, he says here, the best time to do it is now this time between Pesach and Shavuos, because it's not too hot, not too cold, it's a good time to do it. So if the world is engaged in bodily health, the Jew's got to be engaged in the health of his soul, the health of his character, and therefore he's learning Pirkei Avos to go alongside his physical health. That is one reason he gives here.
In the store, we used to get a few blacks who used to come to the store. We want someone to release their blood.
No way.
Yeah, they need blood.
Now another reason is, he says like this, is that this time is the time of the harvest, and the time of the harvest will determine whether we have lots of crop or not lots of crop. So it's time for teshuvah to make sure we have good crop. And that's what they're PIRKEI Avos.
After that's like the summer, not Pesach. It's more.
That's what he says here.
Sukkot time.
He's mana katzir. If he's going to have good crop or not, lots of produce, or his little produce.
So pray.
And therefore it's time to, so if he did well, then he has to thank Hashem. And then PIRKEI Avos is going to remind him to do that. And if it's not so good, time to do teshuvah. And PIRKEI Avos will help him do that too. That's reason number 4, right? Preparing for Shavuos. It's summertime, and we're excited to have a good time. So we have to remember to stay moral. That's PIRKEI Avos. Number 3 is time for physical health. Therefore, it's time for spiritual health too. And number 4 is time of the crop. So either you got to be thanking God, or you got to be doing teshuvah if the crop wasn't so good. And therefore, PIRKEI Avos will help with both of those. Now, finally, we have from the Maharal, who writes as follows. 2 reasons why we do it now in the summertime. Number 1, because the days are getting longer. And because the days are getting longer, you have time to learn, and you'll learn PIRKEI Avos, and you won't miss out on the 3rd meal, the Siddurdum Shlishis. In wintertime, but in wintertime, it's always rushed, and you have 1 meal and you come back. It's too much. In summer, you have lots of time. Take out a PIRKEI Avos, learn, get inspired. Okay?
I always thought it was because the temptations are more.
That's what I said. That was one of the reasons. Summer month, the temptations come back. Our character, so it's time to learn our moral character, to remind us of more character. That was one of the reasons. Okay. Now that was another reason from the Maharal. It's getting longer. Another reason is because winter in general is a hard time to learn. Rain, it's snow, it's muddy. Your brain is not clear. Summer months, it gets too hot, sweaty, it's sticky. Best time to learn, he says, is in the springtime. It's not too hot, not too cold. The weather is nice. Remember, there's no air conditioning back in the day. So imagine you're sitting outdoors. When's the best time to sit outdoors and learn? Springtime.
So he holds from Pesach.
So Pesach to Shavuos, perfect time. Your mind is open. Now it's time to learn PIRKEI Avos. So that's what he says here.
So Pesach to Shavuos.
Yeah. So here you have it. All the different reasons, history, and sources for reading PIRKEI Avos at the various different times. And it's quite fascinating. So I would say in conclusion that as with other customs we saw before, these customs go way back, and the customs predate the reasons. Like we saw with the pouring of the wine on Pesach, even the original source didn't say, here's an idea, do this to commemorate that. He said, our custom is to do this. Maybe the reason is because of this. It's almost as if the custom came first and the reasons come after, right? So similar thing here. It seems clear that Jews for hundreds of years are doing PIRKEI Avos way back when. Whether it's every Shabbos, whether it's summer, whether it's winter, it's here, it's there. But PIRKEI Avos is one of those things that Jews said, this is the kind of thing that's good to learn again and again. So let's put it into our schedule. And only after the fact, they came up with all kinds of reasons. That's what it would seem to me. Which would mean that it's a custom that goes back at least 800s. So we're talking about how many years now? 1600 years already. And possibly even farther back. So very, very ancient custom. And here you have all the different reasons, different ways of thinking about it.
And we know Moshes Death didn't die in Shabbos.
Yeah. So if you guys have any suggestions for research for next Thursday nights, feel free to let me know. We'll try our best to accommodate. Okay, have a good evening, everybody.
Huh? Didn't die.